Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we're gonna be talking about something serious for a change. If you don't follow me on social media, you won't know what happened yesterday. If you do, I'll leave a timestamp that you can skip to because I'm sure you don't want to hear the story again. So essentially yesterday I went to a job interview. Now I didn't say any of this on YouTube, but essentially someone in our department snitched on our department and went to the union. So, a TA, I know who it is. And they went to the union without telling me and a couple other TAs, and essentially the union inquired with our school. Our school didn't want to deal with it, so they just downsized all of us. I'm not gonna go into how I feel because I'm annoyed that my job just went because someone decided to snitch without telling me and speak on my behalf. But anyway, that is why I was going to a job interview. This is not just gonna be a story time. The story time kind of leads into the topic I wanna talk about. And I'm talking about this topic specifically because it happened to me and it made me think about things differently. This isn't just a story time, just wait for it. I go on Indeed.com, I find a job that is a tutoring job. It seems legit, there's nothing weird about it, the wording is fine, the pay is about right, so I was like, okay, let's just go. So I apply and they respond quite quickly, they're like, come and see us, whatever. So I had an interview yesterday at 1:30. This business is supposed to open at 11, and the position I was applying for was specifically like an after-school type tutoring to help children with reading, writing, comprehension, English 101 type shit. So I go there and immediately I have an off vibe. Immediately I feel uncomfortable and I couldn't really tell what one thing it was. It was just like an amalgam of things that did not look good. So I get there and the parking lot is empty. It's like in this like half plaza type thing that's entirely dilapidated. There's no one there, there's no car. There was only one other business that was an optometrist that didn't even look like it had been opened in years. So I was like, okay, and I knew I was in the right place because there was a sign that said the name of this business. I remember being so uneasy that I messaged my friend because I also gave her the link to this job and she also got an interview. And I messaged her, I was like, this place is weird. And I messaged my husband being like, yo, if something happens to me, this is where it happened. Like this is weird, something's up. I go to the door of this business and it's all tinted windows, which I was like, that's a little bit weird for like a tutoring thing. You'd think that people would want to be able to see in. And the sign says open. So I try opening the door and it wasn't opening. So I try again because some doors are just difficult. Still not open. Then because the windows were tinted, I couldn't tell if the lights were on or off, but I look closer and it's clear that they're off. And there's this desk, but no one's sitting behind it. And I look on the floor and there's like a pile of mail, a while's worth of mail. This looks bad. Like this looks really bad. I go to their website. I call the phone number on the website because I'm like, holy shit, what if I'm in the wrong place? What if this is like their old venue? I don't know. I usually think that I'm freaking myself out. So I realize I should have left earlier than I did, by the way. So I call and nobody answers the phone number on the website and it goes to this answering machine that isn't even set up, which is weird for a business. Like you'd think that they'd want to seem as professional as possible. So then I noticed that on the door, there's a number printed on it and it's a different number than on the website. And I was like, that's also weird. So I call that number and I'm pretty sure it went to someone's specific cell phone because the person answered being like, yeah, no, like, hello, you've reached whatever, how can I help you? Nothing that would suggest any type of professionalism. And I was like, hi, like I have an interview with said person. I'm just wondering if I'm in the right place, whatever. And the person tells me, yeah, he's on his way, just wait there. And I was like, okay. And this guy gets there and he's dressed entirely informally. Like I'm not expecting him to come in a tuxedo, but he was like in a shirt and like blue jeans, like extremely casual. And as soon as he opens the door, I'm hit with this sensation of just fear. Like I have a feeling that something is amiss, like something is not right here. He picks up the mail on the floor, all the lights are off. When you go in, it's just like a rectangular room that's just like a box like this. Then there's a hallway in the corner, so you don't see anything from the front. From the front, it's just like this closed room, and then you have to go down this long hallway to like access the rest of the business, which made me extremely uneasy because we just were getting farther and farther from the door. We start walking down this hallway, and there's a sign saying, take your shoes off. Children or like young adults would be there, but at the same time, it just felt weird that they would ask you to take off your shoes. I don't know, I thought that was a weird little thing. Because this wasn't a daycare. this is schooling. So we start going down this long hallway, and I can just see that this place does not look like a business. It looks like a house. It literally just looks like a house with a bunch of rooms that has a storefront. So we start going down the hall, and he's like turning on all the lights, and I'm just thinking, this place was supposed to be open hours ago. Why is nobody here? Now, after I did my research and found out that they supposedly have more than 8 employees working there, I'm like, how is it possible that no one's here? There's no receptionist, nothing? We're the only people here? This is where my internal alarms just really started taking a hold of me physically. Like, I felt my chest tense. I felt like palpitations. I was just kind of in this blur of how the fuck do I get out of here in a way that's non-suspicious and doesn't make him react in any negative way? What's going on? What did I get myself into? He points to this room and he's like, we'll interview in here. And I was like, okay, so this room has no windows. So already I'm automatically more uncomfortable because there's no way out. When you interview, most of the time, they're at their desk with their computer and you're sitting in front of them, right? Here, the computer was turned towards the door, so they wanted me to go on the other side of the desk. That makes me farther from the door, and it's just very strange. And now, one thing I didn't mention on social media is that the room was very barely furnished. Like, there was a computer. I don't even remember seeing pens or books or a bookshelf. Like, the room seemed barren, which, you know, like maybe it was a workspace, but it seemed barren even for a workspace. I was like, there's one computer, 4 chairs, no pens, no paper, nothing. He's like, I'll be right in there. And he just keeps leaving the room and going into these other rooms and switching on the lights and doing God knows what. I sit down and then I stand up and then I sit down again, and I'm trying to decide what to do, in the sense of, in that moment, I wasn't sure whether I was overreacting, but as my husband said, my primal senses were just alarm bells in my head. I was like, excuse me, sir, I'm sorry to waste your time. I'm feeling extremely nauseated all of a sudden. I'm really sorry for wasting your time. I'll call you to reschedule. And then I was like, out the door, real fast out the door. I'm a very organized person in the sense of when I get in my car, I put in my GPS, like I turn on the radio, whatever. Here, that was not the fucking case. I had no idea of how this neighborhood worked. I just fucking drove into a suburban area, then stopped my car, hyperventilated, and called my husband being like, what the fuck? I ended up posting about this on Twitter and on Instagram, and most people were like, hey, that sounds like some weird human trafficking type shit. And to be honest, I hadn't even considered that. Like, I hadn't thought of what's going on here. It was more of like, something's wrong, I'm leaving, and I just didn't question what it was that was wrong. I just fucking left. Last night, I barely slept. I was very anxious. Like, I woke up feeling so tired. Even now, like, I feel anxious talking about that because I genuinely, and this sounds so dramatic, but I genuinely thought I was gonna die. Like, when I was in there and I started having my palpitations, I was like, he's gonna lock the door. I'm not gonna be able to leave here. Something's gonna happen. I'm not leaving here alive, which potentially ridiculous. We don't know, because we don't know if this place was actually a threat. I doubt we're ever gonna know, but I had that sensation. I've done a couple of things in my life that are dangerous. I could be a licensed skydiver by now. Like, I've done shit where death is possible, and I was less scared in all those other scenarios than I was here. Like, I've never been that scared for my life, ever. And I've never left an interview like that. I've never really backed out of a situation in that type of way where I was like, this is real danger. Everyone on Twitter seemed to agree that it was a good idea to get out of there. People were asking me what website I went on to find this job, because people are like, wow, was that like some shitty Craigslist ad? And I was like, no, it was on Indeed.com. So Indeed then was like, DM us, and I DM'd them, and I can show that over here, but I told them that, you know, I didn't want to ruin everyone's life, so I'm like, I'm just suspicious. I don't want to say that for sure there's something going on, because I don't know that. I just think it's worth looking into it and seeing whether there in fact is something suspicious, which I think there is, because I then looked and found these reviews that were hidden on the Indeed website, because this place doesn't even have a Yelp. All the reviews on the Indeed website were all from Texas. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Because I live in California. The place itself is in California. There's no e-commuting. You can't be tutored online via this place. Like, you need to come to the actual place. I told my friend obviously about this. She decided to also not go to the interview. Because of that, I decided to look into places that are fronts for human trafficking, which apparently is more common than I thought. I found a couple of articles where essentially people were saying that they found fake job listings online, and people would be lured to these kind of desolate, isolated places, and then people would be trafficked. I read one story about a job search for a nanny position, and a few people on Twitter also said that they've had this similar situation with a nanny position. And I thought it was interesting because there were a lot of parallels with mine. I got a response from one of the ads within 24 hours. The pay was $400 a week, and I was basically able to set my own hours. Clink, the person in question, Elise Clink, and the woman continued to speak to each other via email and text messaging, but not once did Clink actually hear the woman's voice, she said. According to Clink, after asking several questions about the job to figure out an exact work schedule, the response she received was vague and fishy. According to Clink, after the woman did a supposed background check on her, she did not hear anything back for a while. Roughly a week later, another email came, this time with information on how to deposit a $2,750 check that was waiting for the RA. Clink noticed the check she received was from Washington State, but the envelope it came was postmarked from Atlanta. She got freaked out by this and she went to the police, and they said that Craigslist was one of the largest sex trafficking hubs, right? So this wasn't via Craigslist, but the situation is very similar in that both my friend and I who applied for this job got really random hours. Like multiple times this person asked me if I could come the next day, and they'd be emailing me past 5 p.m. for the next day, which isn't exactly realistic. Then with my friend, they were vague, like come at 4 or 5, and then they weren't clear on which one to come at, and never were like, which one do you prefer? And the answers all seemed almost robot generated, even the ones that I got. At one point I asked them to confirm the address, and they just didn't respond to that, and then started a new email chain where they just didn't address anything I said. So then I found this other article that's titled 7 Ways to Tell if a Job Posting is Actually a Human Sex Trafficker. May be hard to spot a job post from a sex trafficker because it can blend in, but here are 7 red flags to avoid when job hunting to become a victim of human sex trafficking. It can happen to anyone. So I'm gonna just go over the red flags that applied to me specifically, and I'll link everything down in the description below. Red flag number 2 was a big one, where it's they don't ask you questions or give info. If a company that you're inquiring about online or via sign doesn't ask you any questions, you may be in danger. All legitimate businesses will want to review your professional experience even if you're applying for entry-level work. They'll care if you're in their industry or interested in their industry. If there's no way to apply online or nowhere to email your resume and they get angry with you for asking, it's not a legitimate opportunity. If they jump immediately to interview after you text, I'm interested, that's not how normal businesses operate. Legitimate businesses can't interview everyone that's interested. It's not logistically possible. That's a big red flag. This is one I hadn't really thought of because I applied for the job, and once they were willing to interview me, that's when I told my friend, because I wanted to see if they were even responsive. You know, some jobs just never get back to you. And my friend got an interview really fast. So I was like, that's a very fast turnover rate. And she was supposed to interview the same day as me, even if I'd contacted them like weeks prior. Red flag number 3, the interview is in a weird place. Small businesses will often interview in a Starbucks, and that's totally legitimate. But if you have ignored the first 2 red flags and found yourself lining up an interview, look at Google Maps before you head that way. Some online advertisers will say you're such an interesting candidate that the boss wants to meet you personally at his home. That's not normal. Listen to this. But in the case of sex trafficking, you won't have the real name of a person, and if the interview location is a rundown, dilapidated house, you're going to end up in a trunk. Sometimes it will even be in a decent looking house, but that's still not normal, and they could be renting it online for the day to appear more upstanding. If you look on Google Maps and it's in an abandoned strip mall and you know hasn't had any companies in a decade, that's another terrible sign of danger. To be fair, I didn't know that it was in a plaza. It wasn't showing up as on a plaza, it was really showing up as just like the side of a road, but that's essentially where I was. The anxiety. Red flag number 6, the company's a mystery. So the job I applied for had a website that looked totally legit, which actually surprised me that I wouldn't have noticed that it was illegitimate, because it really did look legitimate. It had links, it had a bunch of information. Like, it seemed like they were willing to give out information, but maybe not. In most cases, a lot of businesses keep their names off the ad so they're not bombarded by third-party recruiting firms. If they don't have a website, maybe they're just getting started, but the founders should at least be on LinkedIn and have real people they're connected to, which is still not a guarantee of legitimacy. If there's no mention of them on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or even Google, ask for more information. So, last red flag. Your gut says it's dangerous. Although it should be number 1, the final red flag is that your gut tells you that any part of the process is off. Trust your intuition. We've experienced it. We operate a very large Facebook group called Austin Digital Jobs, and we've worked with the Austin Police Department to report sex trafficking posts online that appear legitimate but are far from it. 2 instances have happened in this very well-known reputable group, both of which were immediately spotted by members publicly declared as sex traffickers and scams, but it shows you these traffickers can blend in and go anywhere. One instance gave no details, but they were looking for an assistant and only offered a phone number. Some of our members texted for more details, and within minutes of the posting shared publicly that they were asking female candidates to interview at a scary-looking house in a bad part of town. The post was screenshot, removed within minutes, and APD was immediately notified. They were familiar with the address and took action. Separately, a link to a Craigslist ad for a personal assistant at a consulting firm for $50 an hour was posted in our Facebook group, insisting that only attractive females apply and a picture of them was required, and they'd have to be comfortable using their body. It was immediately removed and reported from Facebook, Craigslist, and APD. Some people would have believed it to be real because the description of interacting with clients sounded standard, but there were too many red flags. So those are just a few of the red flags. I'll link this down below. Maybe I was extremely naive, but it's just this kind of mentality where, you know, like we assume it's not going to happen to us. And I feel like I'm a generally cautious person because of my anxiety. I kind of have to be. But I really am kind of surprised at the way this panned out. Now, like I said, it's just my suspicion. Maybe it's completely legit and it just looks shady as fuck. But the fact that this was on a relatively prominent street, it's not a dangerous neighborhood by any means, and their job description didn't seem strange. The interactions were a little bit strange, but then again, if it's a small business, I don't expect them to be entirely on top of it the same way that, you know, a university would be. This was a really big wake-up call for me because it's just the usual shit, you know, terrible things happen to other people and not me, that kind of mentality, which, you know, like I try to snap out of, but I feel like so ingrained that the shit is not going to happen to me that it's almost like I need to doubt my instincts, which obviously is not a good thing, and I obviously didn't here. But yeah, it was just a very weird situation. I'm still a little bit shaken up by it, to be honest. Hopefully I'll be able to sleep tonight. I figured I'd let you know about this because I know a lot of us are in the same boat. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always. Sorry this was a dark video. Let's just get right into the fan art.